Hello, my fellow SCs. This demonstration is just to help you understand what Trintech can provide from an APC use case. So as I say, this is specifically referencing our APC use case, and your customers would require two applications, all within Trintech. It would be both the balancer tool and the matcher tool. Reconciliation groups and details provide the types of reconciliations that can be performed. You can have multiple different types of reconciliations. They can be things like bank reconciliations, credit card, point of sale, which we have a separate use case for our point of sale reconciliation. And for this particular scenario, we will be focusing on balance sheet reconciliation. This is the view of a manual process if you were loading, for example, banking data. In our premise, you would be loading the trial balance information or line level information coming from that source ERP, and the match is actually going to happen at load time. So this is showing, as I say, a manual view, but in real life, this would happen automatically. The user would never actually see this particular view. But once it is loaded, it gives you an idea of how well it was able to match your items, right? So in this case, it tells me it was a 28.41% of the transactions that I loaded were able to be matched. When you're looking at your unmatched items, you can manually match things. You can always add comments, so that gives you that visibility that you might need for a later date. You can also choose to allow AI to provide you with suggestions for matching. You can see we have this little button here that says Find Matching Suggestions. That's what kicks that off. Now, in this particular example, you can see that Trintech determined that this is really close to a rule that we have, right? So the rule is 1-to-1, same day wire, and it tells me why it didn't meet that rule. So in this case, it's saying you're off by 6 days. So I can choose to take the match suggestion and agree with this. And I can also update my rule, right? So if I find that I'm getting both scenarios, the same day match and I'm getting them frequently on a 6-day, I can go in, I can copy an existing rule, so I don't have to start all over again, and I can make it be a 6-day rule instead of just just the same day rule. And from there, with that simple push of a button, you can send this to Balancer. So now that you've isolated exactly what those unmatched items are, you can push them to Balancer, and Balancer is going to assign them essentially to the ledger account that they're associated with. So once we click the Send to Balancer, this kind of gives you an idea of what Balancer is. Now, it's the same UI, just like a lot of our different Workday functionality. It's just like a different toggle off to the side. So this is the homepage that you see from Balancer. This is basically your certification engine. So if you think of Matcher as the reconciliation, Balancer is your certification. So from your homepage, you can see what tasks are assigned to you. You have drop downs both here and here that allow you to choose what entity you want to look at, or as you can see, you can leave them at all. But you can also filter down based on the role, right? So maybe for some accounts you're a preparer, for others you might be an approver. You can choose what role you want to view those specific accounts in, and you can easily see, all of the things that require your attention. If the subsidiary ledger data is not integrated from the source ERP, which obviously that would be the scenario we want, right? We want them to be integrated. But just in case it's not, this is just to give you, that overview of the manual process so that you can understand what's really happening behind the scenes. If they had no integration, the account information would still be there, from previous months, but it would just be blank unless you had activity that came over from the matcher. Now, this is what you would see if you did have that integration, right? So we have the balance information. You can have this bring in your subledgers if it's configured to do that. So for example, if it's an AR account, you could have it bring in the subledger related to the AR account. And it really allows the preparers to identify any reconciling items, whether that's manual or, again, if they were pushed from Matcher. You also have this great comment section on the bottom. You can mention other users. So it's just like in Workday where it's going to follow through. And here's the section where you can easily upload documentation. I do like to point out these little buttons up at the top here. We have our activity log, which this is basically the audit trail, right? It's going to show everything that's happened to that certification, literally every touch. So even if you like back something out, it's going to show it, right? So it's every single thing that you do. The other piece is the account information. So the account information includes, basically everything that you've configured for this certification, whether it's who the roles are, things like prepare, approver, or reviewer. You also can clearly see the purpose and procedure associated with these. Just know that this is something that you would update, at the very beginning, you would enter all this information. If you have changes, you could make those changes. But it is an admin role that has the ability to make those changes. I really like the both of these pieces, the purpose and the procedure, because the purpose, I know my personal experience, my controller wanted to have the purpose on every single reconciliation so that anyone could pick this up and easily understand the purpose behind it. So I think this is very helpful. I think the procedure is also very helpful because, again, a brand new user can very clearly see what the expectation is and how to do this certification. So just like Workday, Trintech gives lots of useful dashboards, right? This one is related to transaction item status. So you can easily see how many accounts and the dollar amount as far as risk associated with them. Now, this is a little bit different than the way it is throughout Trintech and also different from how it is in Workday. So we have these blue hyperlinks, but on this particular dashboard, when you click the hyperlink to see what items are in it, it actually automatically creates an Excel file. Now, something we didn't notice in the previous screens was, when you're creating or when you're doing that certification, there's additional dimensionality you can include. And one of them potentially is the account that is impacted by the out of balance item. So that when you put this in Excel, you can filter this down and see, what P&L accounts might be affected. And it allows the user to make a decision whether it's material enough to open their books or not. It also provides insight into who might not be making their adjustments timely, right? So we can see this one is current month, 0 to 30 days. But if you have something that's been sitting here for 61 to 90 days, you can very easily see who is not doing what you would expect them to be doing. This is another great dashboard that they provide. This one gives you that complete view of your certification status. So it's kind of like our certification tracker. You can see the risk associated with your accounts, whether it's not finalized or maybe incomplete certifications. So it tells me what the balance is, and I get a real feel for where I'm at in the certification process. Now, this hyperlink here, this is different, right? That's why I pointed that out in the last one, because it's the only one that I have been demonstrated where it creates an Excel file. For this one, it actually takes you directly to the certification within Trintech. So these are a couple additional pieces of functionality that I don't have screenshots for, but I do want to point out in our role, these can be very beneficial. So the first thing is the ability to reassign either in bulk or individual accounts. Again, this is an administrative role, but it's very simple for them to do in Trintech to take a whole bunch of accounts and reassign them to another user. I know it can get a little bit clunky in Workday. That very clear visibility into the preparer and the approver, looking for that date and timestamp. So I asked that question to our Trintech SC, who's been very helpful. And at the top of every certification, it provides you with that date and timestamp. So they have that same visibility that we have. The ability to configure at the account level, you can do auto certifications. Just like we have, you can configure whether they're, zero balance, whether it's no activity in zero balance. But that functionality is the same as what we offer. The ability to configure the prepare and approver via an Excel upload. I could be incorrect on this, but to me, that was a big deal because I don't think we have that functionality in Workday. And I believe you do have to manually assign the prepare and approver. But this is along with the ability to do those mass updates all within the Trintech platform. Intercompany reconciliation functionality is pretty awesome, right? Ours is really great in Workday, but from an AP&C use case, it's not as valuable as it is, from a traditional FINS use case because I don't have all the underlying data. So while in Workday we can identify variances, we can't really drill into them and figure out why the variance is there. Now, in the matcher process in Trintech, you can isolate those line level variances between your companies. So the matcher is going to go through and, look for all the things that it is not able to match. And then it's going to push that to balancer for certification. Or you could potentially have it record those entries in your source ERP for you. I point this out because, as you can see, this is really going to help with our intercompany reporting story when we're demonstrating the AP&C use case. You should never have your intercompanies out of balance because you're using Trintech that's going to isolate those things for you. So those are just a couple pieces of Trintech functionality that I wanted to share with you guys that, maybe I don't have a screenshot for, but is really relevant for these use cases. We also provide at the end of all of our slides just information about our partner. So here's just some general information about Trintech. As a side note, they have been an excellent partner. They're very open, very happy to work with us. And they seem to be just as excited as we are for this partnership. So thank you everybody for your time today. I hope you find this helpful. And if you have any additional need for assistance, my name is Suzanne Vaux, so feel free to reach out to me. And if I can't help you, I can point you in the right direction.